This presentation on creative distance learning will be divided into two parts. First, I will discuss a case study on real-world distance learning at a local university. I will then describe plans for my own online workshop. On March 23, 2020, the British government declared lockdown in the UK. All education institutions had to close their doors indefinitely. This has meant universities have had to make a rapid shift to online learning. There are a lot of changes being made, but for this presentation I'm focusing on teaching. I will be using creative music technology at De Montfort University as a case study for my research. I've interviewed the programme lead for this course, Dr. Peter Batchelor, through face-to-face discussions and email correspondence as a primary source of information. A large proportion of teaching on this course involves face-to-face engagement in lectures and seminars, and specialist equipment in purpose-built environments like studios, labs and performance spaces. None of these are now available. Being a music course, a lot of normal activity involves ensemble work and collaboration, which isn't possible online. There are no real-world opportunities in which to develop a community, which means challenges in terms of student welfare and mental health. There has been an extremely rapid development of existing online resources, as well as new systems for delivering lectures and seminars. This can be pre-recorded as video or delivered by video conferencing. Tutorials and individual support can also be done by video conferencing as well as by email. Where possible, students are being given licenses to necessary software, and virtualization can replace some of the practical activities they would normally do. Since students can't access resources needed to complete some of the original assessment briefs, alternative tasks have been provided where necessary and they've been given additional time for completion. Switching to online learning brings its own problems. Students may not have the right software or be able to run it on their own computer, or even have a computer to run it on. Slow or unreliable internet mean time lags and miscommunications, particularly when several people are trying to speak at once. This makes it difficult to manage large groups or attend to individual student needs and lecture discussions. Sharing screens is also awkward, making tutorials rather cumbersome. Students are having to get used to learning in a very different way, which some find difficult. But there are also some benefits and some opportunities with online teaching. Video lectures can be used as resources for future classes even after lockdown, which may make future delivery more efficient. Teaching online also encourages innovation. Some lecturers have found that breaking down large practical assignments into smaller, simpler tasks make it easier for some students. To keep the community going, other lecturers have been making virtual studios on social media to develop their learning communities. One music technology lecturer produces self-generating exams so that each student gets a different set of questions and can do exams at home without being able to cheat. Other lecturers have found that disruptive group dynamics have been reduced, since students can't chat among themselves without it being obvious to the group. It's still early days, and Dr. Batchelor says that will be a while before anyone knows the full impact of online teaching. But he says that the situation has encouraged many lecturers to rethink the ways in which they teach and consider more modern techniques, which is maybe a good thing for students' experience in the long run. I have taken the above into account when developing my own workshop for this assignment. I have chosen to do a workshop on oral diversity, as it is an area I have worked on a lot over the last year. Oral diversity mainly refers to the experiences of people who have hearing difficulties or disabilities, but it can also refer more broadly to variations in listening between people with normative hearing, because even oral typical people will experience sound differently from each other. I chose to target second-year creative music technology students for my workshop, as it is at this point in learning that students have covered important fundamentals about sound and listening, and exploring more specialist areas. They are also being encouraged to experiment widely and expand their breadth of interest. The learning objectives for the session are firstly for students to become more aware of sound and their own listening in different environments. This will provide a platform for discussing others' listening experiences. Secondly, I want students to be more aware of oral diversity in its various forms. There is a range of hearing disabilities, for example deafness, hyperacusis, tinnitus, diperacusis and misophonia. I want to discuss these with the students and find practical ways of exploring how sound might be experienced by different people. These ideas could be useful to students with a wide range of interests and career plans across the second year target group. Music educators, music therapists, sound engineers and producers, sound designers and sound artists. Whatever their career goal, the workshop will help students develop their oral awareness and deep listening and their understanding of acoustics and psychoacoustics. So I would not attach this workshop to any particular class, but it is relevant to several of the learning outcomes of the programme as a whole. The workshop introduces new ideas about the experience of musical listening, which students are asked to understand, articulate and synthesise. They can apply this learning within their own work, exploring innovative new techniques in production, composition and sound design. They can develop their abilities in musicianship and oral analysis through the close listening exercises. They will learn new ideas and be asked to discuss the topic, enhancing their communication skills. The workshop includes a range of activities to maintain interest. I'm also keeping in mind that it's an online workshop, and so the activities need to involve resources that students already have with them or can find easily at home. I will provide some pre-workshop activities to prepare them for the main discussion points in the session. There is a variety in the activity types to suit different learning preferences. I would start the workshop itself by encouraging the students to think carefully about how they experience sound in different environments. We could talk about the different acoustic properties in different spaces, e.g. large reverberant spaces versus small absorbent ones. Also about acoustic design in commercial buildings. Cafes are designed to be reflective so that they are loud and dynamic, but New Street Station was designed with acoustic panels that deaden the sound, making the concourse quieter. Students would then be asked to try this for themselves. I provide a link to a sound, maybe a snare drum hit, which they download to their mobile phones. They play the same sound into various different spaces within their home. They then write down their observations on how their experience of the sound changes in each room before sharing their thoughts with the group. One possible variation on this exercise could be the use of John Averill's birdsong Illusion. This is an artificially generated sound that is almost like birdsong, but not quite. Students would again be asked to play the sound both inside and outside their home, but this time they could leave the sound playing on their phones in the garden while they walk away from it and see if it blends into the natural soundscape. The overall idea of this exercise is to become more consciously aware of how environments affect the way we hear things and to start actively listening. Having thought about how we all experience sound differently in different contexts, we would move on to discussing oral diversity, comparing oral typical with oral diverse listening experiences. I will play my tinnitus isolation video where I try to show what it's like for me when I travel into university, and how different sounds trigger continuous ringing and hissing in my ears. This would lead on to a discussion of tinnitus and other conditions like hyperacusis and misophonia, which can be extremely debilitating and distressing for an individual. We could also discuss people on the autistic spectrum who have similar difficulties, but I might make the point that in some cases tinnitus can be experienced as aesthetically intriguing. I would ask students to try using some deafness simulation software to see what it's like to have a hearing disability. We could discuss this while also considering the experience of aesthetic listening for a deaf person. What's it like to attend a concert? The Grateful Dead invited audience members with hearing difficulties to bring objects that would resonate, like balloons. So that sound could be experienced through the tactile senses. So I would invite students to do the same, gathering household cobwebs that they could hold in front of speakers while playing a loud music track, preferably while wearing earplugs or to dampen the acoustic sound. They would make observations about how the experiences are admitted to these objects, which we could then discuss. Before the session, students should have already watched a video of Evelyn Glennie, who also talks about experiencing sound through touch. Finally, we could talk about sound as vibration and the disruptive power of infrasound on equilibrium and emotion. There are tools that make invisible cymatic vibration patterns in surfaces visible. The Chladni paint is one of these. You put salt on the top and play a continuous sound which makes the salt create patterns. The Chladni plate is expensive, but there are examples online of alternatives using cheap household materials. These aren't perfect, but clearly show the effects of different frequencies on the salt particles. So I provide instructions on how to make one during the session. Students would try it out and then discuss the exercise and how it relates to oral diversity. We would have a final discussion at the end of the workshop where we discuss the activities and I ask what they felt they had learnt and how they could apply it to their work. This will allow me to find out whether my learning outcomes have been met. Much of this lesson plan could be delivered just as well in person as online, but there are ways that I could introduce approaches that highlight creative opportunities in distant learning. For example, students could all be provided with the same well-known song, but each would be given different settings for the deafness simulation software. Having listened to the track through headphones to experience the piece as if it were a hearing impediment, They would be given a timestamp for a 15-second fragment of a song which would apply their individual settings to. The rest of the track would remain muted. When all tracks are played simultaneously through Zoom or Teams from the beginning, each student's audible fragment would be heard in sequence. The quality will be low, but there would still be an interesting sound effect produced which would highlight the range of hearing abilities as we move from profound deafness to oral acuity. It is clear that online teaching presents a range of challenges to ensure effective learning. While it's the world we find ourselves in at the moment that has made us consider these new ways of working, they can offer useful new opportunities which can be integrated into normal teaching practice in the future for creative distance learning.